Hey, welcome to TC Disc Golf. Today, we're talking about what goes into learning a new disc. Like, subscribe, share, all those things only helps the channel grow, helps me be able to make more disc golf videos, and that's something I really look forward to. The big part of the game is that as you grow, as your throw gets better, as companies that you like release new product, you want to try it out. And learning new discs is actually a really good thing and a really healthy thing, especially for beginners of the game. So a lot of times what happens is that you're given discs or discs are bought that are not great for you as a beginner. And so something that you do is, as you notice gaps in your game, as you notice some difficulty, throw a disc and you decide you don't like it, it's really important to try new discs. A great example of this in my own play was this year when Wild Disc in January released a brand new lineup. With that process, all of a sudden I went from having a lot of the old Wild Discs that I threw and some of Discraft discs to trying to learn discs like the Sea Otter. And then you have something like not only new discs, but when discs are released in different plastics, like this new Meteor plastic for the Angler, one of the other 3 new discs that came out in January of this year. And so when I think of what it takes to learn a brand new disc, the first thing that I think of is repetition. And so what that means, what that looks like, is going out into the field and throwing the disc over and over again, taking it to the course, throwing that disc on purpose on the course. Even though you normally throw a different disc, take and be like, okay, well, what can I do with this shot if I threw it with this disc instead? Or can I throw a different shot with this new disc because then it has a different sort of flight to it? So repetition really does one of 2 things immediately. First, it lets you see how the disc flies. And so when you're throwing that disc, you can see what does it do in the air, especially if you're throwing it in the field, which is a great place to try out new discs. You get to see, okay, I'm not on the course, I'm not trying to do anything. How does this disc fly on my natural release? How does it fly when I try to hyzer it some? How does it fly when I try to, put a little bit of anhyzer on it? Or how does it fly if I go full power? There's not always course situations that let you do that. The second thing that it lets you do through repetition is it lets you decide where does it fit inside your bag. Because a lot of times what's going to happen is you're not going to need one disc for 20 different types of shots, but you might have 4 discs for 20 shots. But knowing what each one of those does, and especially when you start getting into different plastics, how do you want to use this Meteor plastic versus the lava plastic? The Meteor plastic being more stable, I want to use it differently than I want to use my lava plastic, that premium plastic. And so knowing, okay, with different plastics or even just different discs, how am I going to use it for different shots? And that's really going to start happening through repetition. It lets you know, how's the disc going to fly? Where does it fit in relationship to my other discs? And kind of lastly with repetition is, what can I do with this? The more you throw the disc, the more you get to see your limits. What happens when you do that? What happens when you do this? Can you do a certain shot? Can you hit a certain distance with the disc? Or does that disc not go as far as you're trying to do? So you need to disc up to a different disc. Repetition lets you see that. I would say the second thing that goes into learning a disc is recommendation. And so through YouTube, obviously, there's all sorts of videos that are going to tell you, here's how this disc flies. If you like this disc, try this disc. And that's super awesome. But also, take into account the recommendation of the players that you play with. Something that I've noticed with the disc golf group that I play with the most frequently is that a lot of times there will be one disc that one person really likes and then convinces everybody in the group to try. And it's this really good process where we're able to figure out together through recommendation what are the discs that we actually like. Now, when it comes to the mainstays in our bags couldn't be more different from each other. We just all have different body types, different throws, different mechanics, and that means we have different discs. And some of us have sponsors, like I have a sponsor and another friend of mine is sponsored by Ledgestone, and another friend is sponsored by someone else. And so with that, there's certain discs that even if we like other discs, it's just in our interest to throw the discs from our sponsor. And so when we take and we recommend discs to each other, though, it lets us see what can we do with another disc that's similar, and then can we bring that over to the disc that we're trying to learn. So, this angler, for instance, is a disc that I've heard a lot of friends, when they feel it, when they hold it, they go, okay, this is like a rock. And to some extent, it is like a rock, but it is way more stable, I feel like, than the rock, at least initially, and then it begins to beat in and become straighter. But I wouldn't think of it like a rock when I initially picked it up, but through the recommendation of my friends, I realized, oh, okay, I can use this in certain ways that I would use, Innova's rock disc. The other thing is that, you might not have a spot where your disc is fitting well, and so you're thinking, okay, I'm trying. For me, it was I needed a mid-range that was relatively straight, and so I had friends recommend a handful of different discs, and I ended up throwing the Buzz for a while, and I still go back and forth with the Buzz. But just knowing, okay, I need this sort of a disc, and then being able to talk to your friends. And sometimes what will happen is there's already a disc in your bag, you just haven't thought of throwing it a certain way. You haven't to get it to do what you're trying to get it to do. And so recommendation is a great thing for you if you're trying to learn a new disc. And I would say the last thing that would be good about learning new discs is purpose. And so what I mean by purpose is this idea that when I go out and I'm throwing this disc, I'm not just throwing it like I was earlier. I'm not just trying to repeat something over and over, but I'm throwing it trying to get it to do something. With these anglers, something that has been I've talked about in my reviews is just they get a lot of ground play when they're thrown flat, fast, and hard. And so being able to take and on purpose try to get this disc to settle. Can I get this disc to land and not skip? And the answer is yes, but sometimes you take a disc and you throw it and you go, oh, this disc isn't good, it doesn't do what I want it to do. But part of that is you're throwing it the same base throw, and I really believe, especially as a left-handed player who's had to learn all sorts of different angles, is that having fewer discs that you can throw more shots with can be a good thing, but that requires you taking the disc and going, all right, I need this angler not to skip. How can I throw this angler so that it doesn't skip? What do I need to do differently with my sea otter so that I can get it to hold that turn better? Or with some of the old wild discs, the Addicts, how can I get that Addicts to fly straighter for longer before it begins its fade? And so really, there's so much that goes into learning a new disc, and the piece that ties all these together is time. Whether it's repetition, whether it's recommendation from friends and people you play with, or whether it is trying to throw a disc a certain way on purpose. All of those pieces all add up together, but it takes time to do that. And I think that if you find that you begin to apply one of these to your routine of how you're throwing your disc, doing something over and over again with repetition, listening to the recommendation of your friend, asking your friends questions, or looking up YouTube videos and finding out how they think about certain discs, and then making sure that you're not changing the mechanics of your throw too much, but you're seeing, can I get this disc to do this? Can I get this otter to hold the turn? And all of those pieces put together, give it some time, and I know that you can take and learn how to throw new discs much more efficiently. So this is something that I hope to do again, more videos about this, talking about the different pieces of the game. Hopefully make it a little bit less overwhelming. But if you like this, like I said before, comment below, share it with your friends, helps me out a ton. As you probably know, I've said it in the video, sponsored by Wild Disc. So if you want to get a discount on some sweet gear from Wild Disc, you can use the code Chinchilla23 on their website, and that will get you a discount. And the cool thing about that is that 5% of your order will go towards wildlife conservation efforts, and so they will donate 5%. As always, I'll catch you in the next video.